What if I told you that the wealthiest king in history wore 2 crowns, but only one of them mattered? One crown was made of gold and sat on his head. The other was invisible, forged in the secret place with God, and it determined everything. Solomon's golden crown gave him authority over Israel, but his crown of understanding gave him access to eternal prosperity that outlasted his kingdom, his wealth, and even his own life. If you're new to life in Christ, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to discover will redefine how you see success, wisdom, and true prosperity. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Proverbs 3 verses 13 to 16. 2 crowns, 2 paths, 2 kinds of prosperity. Solomon's journey reveals which one leads to eternity and which one turns to dust. Let's begin. When Solomon became king, he inherited his father David's crown, a physical symbol of royal authority, power, and wealth. It was heavy with gold, adorned with precious stones, representing earthly dominion. But that night in Gibeon, when God appeared to him in a dream, Solomon received something far more valuable, the crown of understanding. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. 1 Kings 3 verse 9. God answered by giving him both wisdom and understanding, a crown invisible to human eyes, but visible to heaven. A crown that would determine not just his earthly success, but his eternal legacy. The Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2 verse 6. These 2 crowns represent 2 completely different paths to prosperity. The golden crown brought temporary wealth, fleeting power, and earthly recognition. The crown of understanding brought eternal impact, lasting wisdom, and heavenly reward. Most people spend their entire lives chasing the golden crown, the visible symbols of success. But Solomon discovered that the invisible crown of understanding was infinitely more valuable. Because one crown you wear for a season, the other crown shapes eternity. Solomon quickly learned that the crown of understanding wasn't just about having information. It was about perceiving truth at a deeper level, seeing what others couldn't see. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Proverbs 1 verse 7. Knowledge tells you what something is. Understanding reveals why it matters and how it connects to everything else. Solomon had access to the best education in the ancient world. He could have accumulated vast knowledge through study alone, but the crown of understanding gave him something knowledge never could: divine perspective. When the 2 mothers came before him with the impossible case, knowledge couldn't help him. There were no facts, no witnesses, no evidence. But understanding revealed the truth instantly. The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. Proverbs 20 verse 5. He understood human nature. He understood a mother's love. He understood how to create a situation where truth would naturally surface. This distinction matters profoundly. You can have a head full of knowledge and still make terrible decisions. But with understanding, you see beneath the surface to what's really happening. Wisdom is supreme, therefore get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Proverbs 4 verse 7. The crown of understanding transformed information into insight, facts into wisdom, learning into discernment. And that's what led to eternal prosperity. The crown of understanding produced its first fruit almost immediately, and it changed everything about how people viewed Solomon's reign. After the famous judgment with the 2 mothers, something shifted in the nation. When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. 1 Kings 3 verse 28. Notice what they recognized: wisdom from God. Not just human intelligence, not just clever thinking, divine understanding that produced just outcomes. This is the first fruit of the crown of understanding, the ability to bring justice and righteousness to complex situations. To do what is right and just is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Proverbs 21 verse 3. Solomon's understanding didn't just solve problems. It revealed God's character through his decisions. People saw heaven's justice operating through an earthly king. This is eternal prosperity. When your life becomes a channel for God's purposes, when your decisions reflect his heart, when your understanding serves his justice. Temporary prosperity says, "Look what I accomplished." Eternal prosperity says, "Look what God did through me." For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Ephesians 2 verse 10. The crown of understanding positioned Solomon to fulfill purposes that outlasted his lifetime. His just decisions created a standard that influenced nations for generations. That's prosperity that doesn't fade when you die. The crown of understanding gave Solomon something invaluable, the ability to perceive what motivated people, to see beyond their words into their true intentions. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4 verse 23. Solomon understood that external behavior flows from internal reality, that actions reveal what's hidden in the heart, that words can deceive, but character eventually shows itself. This understanding protected him from countless traps. He could identify flatterers masquerading as friends. He could discern genuine loyalty from opportunistic allegiance. He could see through deception to truth. Many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find. Proverbs 20 verse 6. His proverbs are filled with observations about human nature that still ring true thousands of years later. The proud person heading for a fall. The lazy person making excuses. The wise person accepting correction. The fool repeating the same mistakes. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Proverbs 26 verse 11. This wasn't cynicism. It was understanding. Solomon saw patterns in human behavior because the crown of understanding opened his eyes to timeless truths about the human condition. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind. Jeremiah 17 verses 9 to 10. When you understand hearts, you can lead people effectively, build relationships wisely, avoid toxic connections, and invest in those who will multiply what you give them. That's a prosperity that compounds through relationships across time. The crown of understanding didn't just help Solomon navigate human relationships. It opened his eyes to perceive God's wisdom woven throughout all creation. He spoke about plant life, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of walls. He also spoke about animals and birds, reptiles and fish. 1 Kings 4 verse 33. Solomon didn't just observe nature, he understood it. He saw divine patterns, eternal principles, and spiritual lessons embedded in the created world. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. Romans 1 verse 20. When Solomon studied the ant, he didn't just see an insect. He saw a lesson about diligence, preparation, and working without external supervision. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. Proverbs 6 verses 6 to 8. When he observed the way lions hunt, he understood principles of strategic planning. When he watched birds migrate, he perceived divine timing and instinct. When he examined plants, he understood seasons and growth cycles. This understanding gave him insight into natural laws that govern creation, spiritual principles reflected in nature, divine order and design in everything, how small things teach profound truths. Ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Job 12 verses 7 to 8. The crown of understanding transformed Solomon from a passive observer into an active learner who saw God's fingerprints everywhere. This is eternal prosperity, learning to read the world as God's living textbook, where every created thing teaches us about the Creator. The crown of understanding gave Solomon profound insight into one of life's most mysterious elements, time itself. He didn't just experience time, he understood it. He perceived the rhythms, patterns, and divine orchestration woven through every season. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1. Solomon wrote an entire poem about time, not as a philosophical exercise, but as lived wisdom. He understood that everything has its appointed moment, its proper season, its divine timing. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build. Ecclesiastes 3 verses 2 to 3. This understanding transformed how he made decisions. He knew when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to be silent, when to build and when to tear down. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good is a timely word. Proverbs 15 verse 23. Most people fight against their current season. They want to harvest when it's time to plant. They want to build when it's time to tear down. They want answers when it's time to wait. But Solomon understood that wisdom means aligning yourself with God's timing, not forcing your own. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11. This understanding of time, knowing that every season serves a purpose, that nothing is wasted, that God orchestrates it all. This is eternal prosperity, because you stop fighting the season you're in and start cooperating with what God is doing through it. The crown of understanding revealed to Solomon something most people never grasp, that true prosperity requires discipline, especially in seasons of abundance. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but whoever hates correction is stupid. Proverbs 12 verse 1. Solomon didn't write gentle words. He understood that discipline isn't optional for those who want lasting success. It's essential. He saw what happened to people who gained wealth without the discipline to manage it. He watched talented individuals squander their potential through lack of self-control. He observed how success destroyed those who weren't disciplined enough to handle it. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. Proverbs 25 verse 28. The crown of understanding taught him that discipline protects what prosperity provides. Discipline in finances, knowing when to save and when to spend. Discipline in relationships, guarding your heart and choosing companions wisely. Discipline in work, consistent effort over flashy shortcuts. Discipline in character, doing what's right even when no one's watching. Whoever scorns instruction will pay for it, but whoever respects a command is rewarded. Proverbs 13 verse 13. Solomon understood that the path to eternal prosperity is paved with daily disciplines that seem insignificant at the time, but compound into massive results over years. Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank. Proverbs 22 verse 29. Excellence through discipline. Mastery through consistent practice. Character through daily choices. This is the prosperity that lasts, not because you got lucky once, but because you disciplined yourself for a lifetime. The crown of understanding opened Solomon's eyes to something most people underestimate: the extraordinary power contained in words. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Proverbs 18 verse 21. Life and death. Not minor influence, ultimate power. Solomon understood that words don't just describe reality, they shape it. He observed how the right word at the right time could heal a wounded heart, resolve a bitter conflict, or redirect an entire life. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Proverbs 15 verse 4. But he also witnessed how careless words destroyed relationships, how lies poisoned communities, how gossip murdered reputations. A lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruin. Proverbs 26 verse 28. The crown of understanding taught Solomon to weigh his words carefully, to speak less and listen more, to use words to build up rather than tear down. Those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. Proverbs 21 verse 23. His proverbs became masterclasses in the art of communication. Words fitly spoken are like apples of gold in settings of silver. A gentle answer turns away wrath. Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. Proverbs 25 verse 11. This understanding of words created eternal prosperity because Solomon's carefully crafted proverbs still speak life to millions of people 3,000 years after he spoke them. Your words today are either building something that lasts or destroying something precious. The crown of understanding helps you choose wisely. The crown of understanding revealed to Solomon something that transformed how he viewed all his riches. That wealth is a tool, not a treasure. A means, not an end. Wealth is worthless in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Proverbs 11 verse 4. Solomon had more wealth than anyone in history. Yet understanding taught him that gold's value isn't in accumulating it, but in what you do with it. He saw wealthy men who hoarded and died anxious. He observed rich fools who squandered and ended in poverty. He watched shrewd individuals multiply resources and bless generations. One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. Proverbs 11 verse 24. The crown of understanding showed him that wealth has 4 godly purposes. First, providing for your household. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. 1 Timothy 5 verse 8. Second, advancing God's kingdom. Solomon poured massive resources into building the temple, eternal investment in what truly matters. Third, blessing others strategically. The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. Psalm 37 verse 21. Fourth, creating opportunities for multiplication. Wealth properly stewarded creates jobs, funds ventures, empowers others to prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Proverbs 11 verse 25. Understanding transforms prosperity from selfish accumulation into strategic stewardship. This is eternal prosperity, using temporal resources to create lasting impact, managing money as a steward, not an owner, multiplying wealth for kingdom purposes, not ego satisfaction. The crown of understanding that had served Solomon so well began to slip when he made a devastating choice. He compromised what he knew was right for what seemed politically advantageous. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter: Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, "You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods." Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. 1 Kings 11 verses 1 to 2. He understood the command. He knew the danger, but he chose compromise anyway, and understanding began to fade. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. 1 Kings 11 verses 3 to 4. The crown of understanding cannot coexist with deliberate compromise. When you choose to disobey what you clearly understand, you begin to lose the very understanding that made you successful. So the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates." 1 Kings 11 verse 11. Solomon learned the hardest lesson. Compromise costs you everything understanding built. Eternal prosperity requires uncompromising obedience to what understanding reveals. In his final years, broken by the consequences of his compromise, Solomon's crown of understanding was restored, but through a painful path he never imagined. He began writing Ecclesiastes, not from triumph, but from devastation, not from success, but from failure. Meaningless. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 2. This wasn't depression. This was clarity bought through brokenness. Understanding regained through humility forced upon him by consequences. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 14. Solomon had chased everything: pleasure, achievement, wealth, women, reputation, power. And now, with brutal honesty, he declared the truth is restored, understanding revealed. Without God, it's all empty. So I hated life, because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Ecclesiastes 2 verse 17. But something profound happened in this brokenness. The crown of understanding, though tarnished by his failures, taught him the most valuable lesson of all. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13. He came full circle, back to where he started, back to what truly mattered. Understanding restored through brokenness is deeper than understanding gained through blessing, because now it's tested, proven, and purified by fire. This is eternal prosperity, when even your failures become lessons that point others to God. Solomon's restored crown of understanding gave him the clearest vision of all, the ability to distinguish between what fades and what lasts forever. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Matthew 6 verses 19 to 20. He had accumulated temporary treasures his entire life. Now he understood what truly qualified as eternal. Temporary. His palace would crumble. Eternal. The wisdom he wrote would endure. Temporary. His gold would be divided. Eternal. The lives he influenced would continue influencing others. Temporary. His kingdom would split. Eternal. His understanding of God's ways would guide generations. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. Ecclesiastes 1 verses 3 to 4. Solomon understood that eternal prosperity isn't about how much you accumulate on earth, but about how much you invest in heaven. Every act of obedience, eternal. Every word of wisdom shared, eternal. Every soul pointed toward God, eternal. Every moment of surrender, eternal. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 14. The crown of understanding taught him to evaluate everything through an eternal lens. Does this matter in 1,000 years? Will this echo in eternity? Is this building something that lasts? This is the prosperity that never fades, living in light of forever, investing in what death cannot touch, building what time cannot destroy. The crown of understanding revealed to Solomon what most people never grasp, that legacy isn't what you leave behind, but what lives on through others. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. Proverbs 13 verse 22. Solomon's material inheritance was divided, fought over, and eventually lost. But his legacy of understanding, still multiplying 3,000 years later. Every parent teaching Proverbs to their child continues Solomon's legacy. Every leader applying his wisdom extends his influence. Every person who fears God because of his words perpetuates his impact. The memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. Proverbs 10 verse 7. Understanding taught Solomon that true legacy is measured by lives transformed, not monuments built. Wisdom passed on, not wealth accumulated. Truth preserved, not empires expanded. souls reached, not territories conquered. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and the one who is wise saves lives. Proverbs 11 verse 30. His buildings crumbled, his kingdom split, his gold was plundered. But his understanding, captured in Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs, continues bearing fruit. This is eternal prosperity, creating a legacy that doesn't die when you do, that doesn't require your presence to continue, that multiplies beyond what you could accomplish in one lifetime. Even in death, the righteous seek refuge in God. Proverbs 14 verse 32. Your crown of understanding determines whether your legacy fades with your last breath or echoes through eternity. The crown of understanding taught Solomon something that transformed how he approached God. That true worship isn't about what you bring, but about who you are before Him. The sacrifice of the wicked is detestable. How much more so when brought with evil intent? Proverbs 21 verse 27. Solomon had built the most magnificent temple in history. He had offered thousands of sacrifices. He had orchestrated elaborate ceremonies. All the external forms of worship were perfect. But understanding revealed that God sees past the offerings to the heart offering them, to do what is right and just as more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Proverbs 21 verse 3. He learned that worship without obedience is noise, that songs without surrender are empty, that gifts without genuine devotion are worthless. The Lord detests the sacrifice of the wicked, but the prayer of the upright pleases Him. Proverbs 15 verse 8. This understanding of worship's true nature separated Solomon from religious pretenders. They worshipped with their lips. He worshipped with his life. They offered what cost them nothing. He offered what cost him everything. They performed for people's approval. He surrendered for God's pleasure. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools, who do not know that they do wrong. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 1. The crown of understanding revealed that eternal prosperity flows from authentic worship, where your whole life becomes an offering, where obedience becomes your sacrifice, where surrender becomes your song. Not religious activity, but genuine relationship. That's worship God receives. The crown of understanding gave Solomon profound insight into the type of relationships that lead to eternal prosperity. Connections that multiply wisdom rather than drain it. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs 13 verse 20. Solomon understood that your associations either elevate you toward your destiny or drag you toward destruction. There's no neutral ground. He observed how iron sharpens iron, how the right relationships challenge you, refine you, and make you better. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Proverbs 27 verse 17. But he also witnessed how toxic relationships contaminate everything they touch, how foolish companions lead even wise people astray, how the wrong inner circle corrupts sound judgment. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. Proverbs 22 verses 24 to 25. Understanding taught him to value. Friends who tell you truth over flatterers, who tell you what you want to hear. Mentors who challenge your thinking over yes men who affirm your foolishness. Companions who point you toward God over those who lead you away. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Proverbs 27 verse 6. Solomon's tragedy shows what happens when you ignore this understanding. His foreign wives, relationships built on political advantage rather than shared values, led him into compromise that cost him everything. Eternal prosperity requires surrounding yourself with people who sharpen your understanding, not dull it, who multiply your wisdom, not divide your devotion. The crown of understanding revealed to Solomon that the foundation of all lasting prosperity is humility, not as weakness, but as accurate self-awareness before God. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. Proverbs 11 verse 2. Solomon's journey began with humility. When God offered him anything, he responded not with demands, but with honest admission of inadequacy. I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. 1 Kings 3 verse 7. That humility opened every door. That acknowledgement of need invited divine help. That surrender to God's wisdom activated supernatural breakthrough. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16 verse 18. But as success multiplied, pride crept in. Solomon began trusting his own wisdom more than seeking God's. He started believing his own press. He forgot that every gift came from God's hand. And when humility left, understanding began to fade. Before a downfall, the heart is haughty, but humility comes before honor. Proverbs 18 verse 12. In his restoration, Solomon rediscovered what he'd lost. Humility isn't just the beginning of wisdom. It's the environment where wisdom thrives. Humble people keep learning because they know they don't know everything. Humble people keep seeking because they recognize their need. Humble people keep growing because they remain teachable. Humility is the fear of the Lord. Its wages are riches and honor and life. Proverbs 22 verse 4. Eternal prosperity requires maintaining the humility that invited God's help in the first place. Not just at the beginning, but throughout the entire journey. The crown of understanding only fits on a bowed head. The crown of understanding revealed to Solomon that eternal prosperity is inseparable from justice and righteousness, not as religious obligation, but as the fabric of God's kingdom. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin condemns any people. Proverbs 14 verse 34. Solomon understood that personal success built on injustice is temporary at best, cursed at worst. That wealth gained by exploiting others carries a price far greater than the profit. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. Proverbs 11 verse 1. His wisdom taught him that justice isn't optional for those pursuing eternal prosperity. It's foundational. Justice in business dealings, honest weights, fair prices, transparent transactions. Justice in governance, defending the vulnerable, restraining the powerful, judging without partiality. Justice in relationships, treating people with dignity regardless of their status. Do not exploit the poor because they are poor, and do not crush the needy in court, for the Lord will take up their case and will exact life for life. Proverbs 22 verses 22 to 23. Solomon saw that God himself defends those who cannot defend themselves. That injustice invites divine opposition. That righteousness positions you for heaven's favor. The righteous care about justice for the poor, but the wicked have no such concern. Proverbs 29 verse 7. His crown of understanding taught him that you cannot build eternal prosperity on the backs of the oppressed. That wealth accumulated through injustice will eventually collapse. That righteousness, doing what's right even when it costs you, is the only foundation that lasts. Better a little with righteousness than much gain with injustice. Proverbs 16 verse 8. This is prosperity that survives God's judgment, because it was built on his principles from the beginning. The crown of understanding expanded Solomon's vision beyond his own lifetime, teaching him to think in terms of generations, not just immediate results. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. Proverbs 13 verse 22. Children's children, not just the next generation, but the one after that. This is generational thinking, making decisions today that will bear fruit long after you're gone. Solomon understood that eternal prosperity requires planting trees you'll never sit under, building foundations you'll never see completed, investing in outcomes that transcend your lifetime. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isaiah 40 verses 30 to 31. He saw that quick gains often create long-term problems, while patient investments produce compounding returns across generations. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. Proverbs 13 verse 11. The crown of understanding taught him to ask different questions. Not what benefits me now, but what blesses those who come after me. Not what's the fastest path, but what's the most sustainable. Not what impresses people today, but what endures through tomorrow. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22 verse 6. Generational thinking invests in children's character, not just their comfort. In principles that outlast you, not platforms that die with you. In wisdom passed down, not just wealth handed over. This is eternal prosperity, building something that continues blessing people you'll never meet. The crown of understanding prepared Solomon for the ultimate test that every person faces. How you finish, not just how you start. The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. Ecclesiastes 7 verse 8. Solomon had started brilliantly. Young, humble, seeking God, crowned with divine understanding. But the test of a life isn't the opening chapter, it's the final one. He had watched his father David stumble badly in the middle of his story, but finish strong, repentant, and restored. Now Solomon faced his own ending. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. 1 Corinthians 15 verse 58. The crown of understanding revealed harsh truth. Success in the beginning guarantees nothing about the end. Early wisdom doesn't immunize you from later foolishness. Strong starts don't ensure strong finishes. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 12. Solomon's writings in Ecclesiastes suggest he understood this final test, that he recognized his compromise, that he was warning others not to repeat his mistakes. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13. The final test is simple but not easy. Will you maintain until the end what understanding revealed at the beginning? Will you finish fearing God as you started fearing God? Will you keep his commandments in success as you did in struggle? Will you die with a crown of understanding still on your head? Eternal prosperity demands strong finishes, not just strong starts. At the end of Solomon's journey, the contrast between his two crowns became crystal clear. One crown was temporary, the other eternal. One visible, the other invisible. One from earth, the other from heaven. His golden crown, symbol of earthly authority, would be passed to his son Rehoboam, who would lose most of the kingdom through foolishness. That crown's power ended with Solomon's death. But his crown of understanding, the wisdom, the Proverbs, the insights into God's ways, that crown continues to impact humanity 3,000 years later. The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin. Proverbs 10 verse 14. This is the ultimate revelation. The crown that lasts is the one most people ignore while chasing the one that fades. People pursue the golden crown, wealth, status, power, recognition. But eternal prosperity comes from the crown of understanding. Wisdom that survives death, truth that transcends time, insight that blesses generations. Wisdom is supreme, therefore get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Proverbs 4 verse 7. Solomon's life answers the question every person must face. Which crown will you pursue? The one the world applauds, or the one heaven honors? The one that impresses people temporarily, or the one that impacts eternity? The one you wear for a season, or the one that becomes your legacy? Do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Preserve sound judgment and discretion. They will be life for you, an ornament to grace your neck. Proverbs 3 verses 21 to 22. The crown of understanding is still available. God still offers it to those who humble themselves and ask. And it still leads to the only prosperity that truly matters, the eternal kind. Which crown will you choose? We've walked through Solomon's entire journey, from the young king who received the crown of understanding in Gibeon's darkness, to the powerful monarch who ruled with divine wisdom, to the broken man who compromised it all, to the restored sage who warned future generations. And now you stand at the same crossroads Solomon faced. 2 crowns, 2 paths, 2 kinds of prosperity. Choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. Joshua 24 verse 15. The world is screaming at you to chase the golden crown, to pursue wealth, status, power, recognition, to measure success by what you accumulate, who knows your name, what you control. And you can have it. Solomon proved that. You can gain the whole world. But at what cost? What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Mark 8 verse 36. The golden crown is temporary. It fades when you die. It's stolen by time. It's divided by heirs. It crumbles to dust. Solomon had more golden crown than anyone in history, and he called it meaningless when compared to what truly matters. But there's another crown available, the one most people ignore while chasing gold. The crown of understanding, divine wisdom that transforms how you see everything, that opens doors money can't buy, that creates prosperity extending into eternity. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. Proverbs 3 verses 13 to 14. This crown is available to you right now, not through achievement, not through education, not through striving, through humility and asking. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. James 1 verse 5. The path Solomon shows us. Solomon's life reveals the formula clearly. Start with humility, acknowledge you need divine help, ask for understanding, specifically request wisdom. Not wealth, apply what you receive, obey what understanding reveals, maintain it through obedience. Don't abandon wisdom. When success comes, finish strong. Let understanding guide you to the end. This path leads to eternal prosperity. Not just earthly success, but impact that outlives you. Legacy that blesses generations. Treasure stored in heaven where it never fades. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Proverbs 3 verse 16. Notice the order. Long life, eternal perspective, in the right hand. Riches and honor, temporal blessings, in the left hand. When you pursue the crown of understanding, you get eternal prosperity and temporal blessings. But when you pursue only temporal prosperity, you risk losing both. The warning from Solomon's fall. But Solomon's life also contains a sobering warning. You can receive the crown of understanding and still lose it through compromise. Success doesn't guarantee you'll finish well. Early wisdom doesn't immunize you from later foolishness. Having understanding once doesn't mean you'll keep it forever. So, if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 12. The crown of understanding requires maintenance. Daily humility, continuous obedience, constant dependence on God. The moment you start trusting your accumulated wisdom more than seeking fresh wisdom from God, you begin to lose the crown. Solomon proved this tragically. Don't let his warning be wasted. Right now, God is offering you the same choice he offered Solomon in Gibeon. Ask for whatever you want me to give you. 1 Kings 3 verse 5. What will you ask for? The golden crown, wealth, success, recognition, power, or the crown of understanding? Wisdom that leads to eternal prosperity? Your answer determines everything. Not just your earthly success, but your eternal legacy. Not just what you achieve in life, but what outlasts your death. Not just what people say at your funeral, but what heaven records in eternity. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 14. If you're ready to choose the crown of understanding, pray this with me right now. Father, I acknowledge that I've been chasing the wrong crown. I pursued wealth over wisdom, success over understanding, recognition over relationship with you. Forgive me. Like Solomon in Gibeon, I humble myself before you. I'm inadequate without your help. I don't have what it takes on my own. Give me the crown of understanding. Not just information, but divine insight. Not just knowledge, but supernatural wisdom. Not just earthly success, but eternal prosperity. Teach me to fear you, to obey you, to maintain humility even in blessing, to finish strong, not just start well. I choose the crown that lasts. I choose wisdom over wealth. I choose eternal over temporal. In Jesus' name, amen. This isn't a one-time prayer. It's a daily choice. Every morning, you'll face the same decision. Which crown will you pursue today? The world will pressure you toward gold. Culture will mock your choice of understanding. Success will tempt you to abandon wisdom. But remember Solomon, the crown of understanding is the only one that survives death. The only one that blesses generations. The only one that matters in eternity. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13. Solomon wore 2 crowns, but only one mattered. He pursued both kinds of prosperity, but only one lasted. He left 2 legacies, but only one still speaks. His golden crown is dust. His crown of understanding is still teaching millions. His earthly wealth was divided and lost. His eternal wisdom continues multiplying. His kingdom fell. His understanding still stands. Which crown will define your life? Which prosperity will you pursue? Which legacy will you leave? The choice is yours. But choose wisely, because one crown fades with time. The other echoes through eternity. If this message has transformed how you see success and prosperity, share it with someone chasing the wrong crown. Subscribe to Life in Christ for biblical wisdom that redefines everything you thought you knew about success. Comment below, I choose the crown of understanding, if you're committing to pursue wisdom over wealth, eternal over temporal, God's way over the world's way. And most importantly, wake up tomorrow and ask God for understanding before you chase anything else. The crown is waiting. The prosperity is available. The choice is yours. God bless you. We'll see you in the next one.